Who has won the Iranian election is a matter of opinion. In simple terms, with the results still being declared, the conservative hardliners have done better than the reformers. But that was always going to happen because hundreds of reformist candidates had been disqualified, and so their supporters had decided to boycott these elections, and there was a huge campaign to stay away. So this election was always about turnout. Now, the official figures are claiming that the nationwide turnout was 41%, which is just a little bit below what it was 4 years ago. And here in Tehran, where there are many more skeptics, they're claiming it was 25%. Now, on the face of it, the government is saying turnout was good and that it feels vindicated in its system of government. But if you think about it, that means nationwide 6 out of 10 people decided to stay away from this election. And here in the capital, 3/4 just ignored it. So when I spoke to the pro-government academic Mohammad Marandi earlier today at Tehran University, I put it to him that the boycott had won.
No, there wasn't a major boycott. The turnout was low. The numbers are accurate. They're very clear. There's no question about them. And the polls were all around 41, 42%, the same as 4 years ago. There is general apathy because the previous administration did not perform well economically. And the current administration, they've had 3 years, and the economy isn't very good for ordinary people.
It's quite interesting talking to people at the polls yesterday when we asked them why they're voting. They weren't talking about domestic issues. They weren't talking about the economy or food prices or anything like that, when inflation is running at crazy numbers here. They were talking about Iran's enemies and the world. And that's a strange situation to be in for an election.
Right now we have a very dangerous environment. We have the genocide in Gaza. We have the Israeli regime moving towards escalation with Lebanon. We have the Red Sea. And we have an administration in Washington that doesn't seem to understand the reality and the danger that exists on the ground in this region. So Iran at this time wants its guards to be, its shield to be prepared for any consequences.
But you know from a Western perspective, Iran is the troublemaker because it's arming all of these groups and supporting them.
Well, Iran is, in the West, Iran is always the troublemaker. Everyone outside of the West is a troublemaker.
But if you arm Hamas and then Hamas go and attack Israel and kill 1,000 people and take hostages, you can't be surprised at how the West sees you. You know, yes. That's why you're accused of supporting terrorism.
Hamas is a resistance organization. The Palestinian people have been ethnically cleansed. Gaza has been a concentration camp for decades. And the people who've been ethnically cleansed, trapped in a cage, they lashed out at their oppressors.
So is it typical in Iran, or in the government at least, to say the October 7th attack was a legitimate military action?
Yes, definitely, without a doubt.
The kidnapping, sexual violence, all of that, that was all...
There is no proof of that sexual violence.
Well, there is evidence. But you see why this is a dangerous situation, don't you? I mean, there are relatively moderate voices in the West who are saying military action against Iran should be the next step.
It's possible that the United States and its allies would be aggressive and carry out attacks. But I think there are lots of sane people still in Washington that recognize that Iran is not Iraq, Iran is not Afghanistan, Iran is not Yemen, Iran is not Vietnam. It's stronger than all of them combined. And they would lose such a war. Everyone would lose.
In those peace talks for a two-state solution, where does Iran sit? Does it support it?
Iran will not impede any talks, but Iran will insist that the only solution for Palestine is for Jews, Muslims, Christians to be equal citizens in that land.
Well, our permission to be here runs out tonight, so we can't stay to see what happens next. Foreign media does tend to be allowed into Iran at election time, so the government can demonstrate its democratic credentials. That was complicated this year because the majority of Iranians decided not to play along with that narrative. And we came, in all honesty, with very few expectations of being able to hear from opposition or sceptical voices. But we've been really surprised at the number of ordinary people in the street who have been happy to tell us about their scepticism, that they had no intention of taking part in these elections. And if you think that last year hundreds of people were arrested and many lost their lives standing up for women's rights, it is astonishing that so many women walk around this city not wearing the hijab, not covering their heads. It's clear that while the Iranian government feels emboldened on the international stage, people at home also feel stronger about expressing their view.